Welcome back to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast. It's Thursday, November the 28th, and we come to you fresh off a very successful weekend. It seems like I should probably have more days where I'm required at a racecourse early doors, as I left you in the capable hands of our big boss, Adam Bayliss, who provided us with a flurry of winners. I think it's 3 from 3. He had Royal Pagaille, Shoot First, and Still Ali. I think there will be cries for Adam to return, and happily I'll step aside if you want him back, but for now we've got him working away, breathing away to make sure that we find more winners. But added to that, we got Ross with Marator, and also TC King's Code at Wolverhampton. And if you're following him on SBK Twitter, TC also put up Spillane's Tower, who was in each way second 18-1 in the John Durkin. So all in all, a fantastic weekend. Ross, quickly on last, just a word on Royal Pagaille. He's the kind of horse why we love jump racing, really. He's such a game, likeable sort, and it was a Betfair chase that I really enjoyed watching. It was a John Durkin I really enjoyed watching. I think probably we might have regained a genuine jumps fan in our midst with TC after last weekend's racing.
Well, we might have broken his heart a bit, really, because he definitely picked the best horse in the Betfair chase. It just didn't stay as well, and probably his enthusiasm and his exuberance over the fence is what's paid, whereas Royal Pagaille was really efficient. I actually spoke to Charlie Deutsch, interviewed him on the Tuesday podcast this week, and he said whilst he was losing ground at some of the fences on certainly the first circuit, and he felt the horse was warming up, he said it's probably a really efficient way to be. And interestingly, he said when Grey Dawning made a mistake at the last, he felt Royal Pagaille find a bit more and go again and feel like he had a squeak. And he's just a really, really brave horse. And we shouldn't forget, he was returning from a broken shoulder. You know, that's not a little muscle knock or a broken shoulder at Cheltenham in the Cotswold Chase. Back to win that, he really is a very brave horse to go into the red again, you know, on a track that's particularly stamina snapping. And as for the John Durkin, really, really good race. And I'm glad that largely people have focused on it being a really good race rather than jumping straight ahead to what's this 2 mile 4 grade 1 chase in Ireland in November mean for the Cheltenham Gold Cup over 3¼ miles in March. I thought it was really good that it stood on its own 2 feet, which is really important.
Yeah, focusing on the now and the present, which we always do with this weekend's racing, as Ross touched on. Grey Dawning for TC might have broken his heart, but I think we've got a long season ahead with that horse. Really interesting to see where he might end up. Let's focus on this weekend. We've got 3 excellent races we're going to cover. We're going to begin with the Fighting Fifth, the Grade 1, so the top of the top in terms of the class that we have on offer at Newcastle 210. We know no Constitution Hill. Potentially will be returning at the Christmas hurdle, but we've got a pretty good substitute from the Nicky Henderson yard in the shape of Sir Gino. Was going to go chasing, now he's back over hurdles, and this star juvenile will be looking to add to his Grade 1 victory at Aintree from last season. He's even money. We've got Willie Mullins bringing over Mystical Power 6-4, Brentford Hope for Harry Derham 7-1, Lump Sum, the Welsh champion hurdle winner for Sam Thomas, who's having an excellent season so far, with Dylan Johnson 16-1. The race is made up by Kiva, Colonel Mustard, Take No Chances, Tell the Name, and Benson. And I list out the number of horses in this, Ross, because 9 runners for a Fighting Fifth is a good number. Whether you like it or you don't like it, I'd imagine having Constitution Hill not in this race has probably made it a slightly better betting race.
Yeah, well, no Constitution Hill and Not So Sleepy to scare the others off does make it a better contest. And I would have happily watched Constitution Hill bounced round and win at long odds on, because he's a wonderful horse to watch. But equally, I'm very happy having a competitive race with some different angles to sort of watch, learn, and in this instance, try and figure out beforehand. I think it probably centres around the top 2, Sir Gino and Mystical Power. Mystical Power is £2, rated £2 superior, but isn't the favourite. I think the crux of it is going to be their jumping. They both have left a little bit to be desired with their jumping at times. So Gino, if you remember, at Kempton, won beautifully, but barely jumped a hurdle. Was then very good in the jumping at Cheltenham on Trials Day. Missed the triumph, obviously, because of Nicky Henderson's yard form, and then went to Aintree, jumped abysmally up the home straight, but still had enough to beat Carghese. So he's clearly got a big engine. For me, it centres around whether being prepared to go chasing has added a little bit of technique to his jumping and that he can transfer to hurdles? Or is it that he had such little regard for hurdles, he's now seen a few fences, they're going to seem even less interesting and he's going to have even less regard for them? And the same Mystical Power, his jumping improved through the season. I think you have to also mention that Willie Mullins, one or two of them are needing a run, like State Man certainly needed the run last week in the Morgiana. I can't think that Mystical Power is going to be coming over on the boat short of fitness, but there's just questions about both of them. I think one of the two will win it, but I would much prefer to watch those battle it out, take an each way angle, which is lump sum for Sam Thomas. Sam Thomas training at a 50% strike rate. I was really impressed by this horse in the Welsh Champion Hurdle. He only won by a length from Steel Alley, but Steel Alley won off a £3 higher mark last weekend. He's now rated 143, and lump sum got to the front about a furlong and a half too soon and just idled all the way up the home straight under Dylan Johnston. He's a pacey horse. He jumps really well. The only time he didn't jump well was in the Grade 1 at Aintree, but I think Sam's yard were dropping out of form at that point. Just interested to see him in a better grade of race. He'll travel nicely, and I'm effectively backing him on nice ground, which I think it will be at Newcastle because they're watering to keep moisture in the dry bits. I'm backing him effectively to beat Brentford Hope, who I don't think is at his best on quick ground. And then obviously if one of the other two underperform or both of them underperform, I just thought 16-1 was a nice each way price, and I'd much rather watch the front two and take a view on them going forwards.
Yeah, I agree with you. Each way price there with 9 runners, 16-1 for a horse connected to a yard that absolutely firing and started in a very good realm of form, and also the form has been franked massively. So lump sum for Ross. Tom, it's a race where, looking through, and we know you like a stat, we see that favourites have done very well in this race. So Gino, I have to admit, is one of my favourite horses, and we've seen him in that workout at Newbury. He looks a beast, and he's got lots of boxes that he ticks. He's a 4-year-old though, and going back through the years, there's only been a handful of 4-year-olds. I think it's 4-year-olds that have won this Fighting Fifth. So that's slightly against him, I'd imagine, but he doesn't look like one, does he? He's never really seemed to be that sort of juvenile-esque type of horse, and he's got it all ahead of him. Are you as excited for him now over hurdles as you may have been if he was going to go chasing?
Yeah, absolutely. And much like Adam Bayliss was a super sub for you last week, Jess, I think Sir Gino is a super sub for Constitution Hill. It's going to be between the two at the top of the market. I agree with Ross in that perspective. And unlike Ross, I have a differing opinion on each way playing. I don't like playing each way when I think there's just one place up for grabs and the horse probably won't win. So I will just focus on the top two in the market. Not much separates them really. I mean, Sir Gino's rated 152. Mystical Power 154. Sir Gino's had fewer starts. Mystical Power has more experience and is a year older. I just think Sir Gino's a lot more talented, to be honest. We haven't really got to his ceiling yet. And what he showed last year was not only professionalism, good jumping ability, but also a very high cruising speed and a wicked turn of foot. Ross was at Cheltenham as well as I was, I believe, on the day where he beat Burdett Road, and he smashed him. It was 10 lengths. Burdett Road's a super fast horse as well, and Sir Gino made him look slow. That visual impression hasn't left me since, and albeit we only saw him once more at Aintree, where he beat Cargeese pretty comfortably, and Cargeese had relatively good form over the course of last year and was very consistent. I still think Sir Gino is open to loads more improvement, whereas Mystical Power, we may have kind of got towards the top of his ability. He's still open to maybe a little bit more, but I don't think he's a 160 horse, for example, whereas Sir Gino almost certainly could be. So at 5-4 even money, I think that's a very, very fair price on Sir Gino. The workout was solid with Constitution Hill. Obviously, Constitution Hill wasn't at his best in the workout, and we don't really know what Sir Gino did, but it looked like Sir Gino was fit and firing, and that's all we can really ask for. So I'll take Sir Gino in this spot. I think it's a good price. If he goes odds on, I won't have a bet. If he stays odds against, I will.
Okay, I think that's a good surmise of Sir Gino. I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I also think that even at Aintree, he might not have been at his absolute best, considering we know Nicky Henderson was still going through a slightly difficult time, whereas now horses are in good form. even if some of them might just need a run, but we have seen him in the flesh. He looks fit. He looks as good as you'd want him to be after 233 days off the track. So Sir Gino for TC got each way for lump sum, and Ross. That's the grade 1. Now we're going to head over to Newbury, where they've got excellent racing, as they always do on this day where Newcastle features their grade 1 action. But this is what was Hennessy, now Coral Gold Cup Day. But before we focus on that big handicap, we're going to look at the 225 at Newbury. The Gerry Fielden, 2 mile half a furlong, so we're over hurdles again, and another race that is coughed up a good number of runners. 13 go to post, and Nicky Henderson will hope to have a good across the card few hours or so, as he has Jericho de Repene here at 4-1. James Bowen in the plate. He'll be taking on a lot of the big rides for Nicky Henderson on Saturday at Newbury. Liari for Cobden and Nichols is in this at 5-1. Queen's Gamble, not seen for nearly a year, for Johnny Burke and Harry Derham, 7-1. Aston Martini 8-1 as is Accelero, and 10-1 Bigger the Rest. So from a betting perspective, 4-1 the field. This is a good you'd imagine a race that you want to get involved in. But Ross, Jericho de Repene, solve the problem about him, pulled up on his last 2 starts. Does he come with a bit of trepidation if you're betting him as a favourite? What did you make of the reasons for what went wrong last time, where he was sent chasing for the first time, and can you forgive him? Do you think that he's in the right hands, as we've seen so many times before, to get over what happened last time at Sandown and come back over hurdles in good shape?
Yeah, I mean, I really quite fancy, but it's just what you want, isn't it, when you're tipping up a 4-1 favourite in a competitive handicap hurdle, is the form line of PP next to his name. But you've got to put a line through the Supreme Run. We know that the Henson Yard was out of form. They chanced a few. It clearly wasn't his running. And at Sandown last time, for those that missed it, and if you missed it, where have you been? He got very distressed saddling up. They got the saddle on and it slipped, and they had to try and re-saddle him, and that apparently sent him completely over the top. He then ballooned the second fence at Sandown, and then made a mistake when Nico said he slipped into the second last down the back and got pulled up. For me, there's enough there to say you've got excuses. He's since been to Kempton on Monday when they ran Iberica Lord. He went and he got saddled up in the saddling boxes, walked around the paddock before racing. Yet another instance of these top yards going to every single length and detail to try and get horses back to form. By all accounts, he saddled well, he walked around the paddock well. I think you've just got to put it through down to one of those things. He's off a mark of 135 here. He sluiced up at Newbury in 2, let's call them what they are, egg and spoon races, really. They're maidens and novices. You can't really assess the form there. But visually, he was brilliantly impressive. And then he slightly sort of had stones thrown at him for his winning the Rossington Main at Doncaster, which was sponsored by SBK, because he only beat Lump Sum by a length and 3/4. Well, hindsight says that's a really strong piece of form. Lump Sum is 143 horse. The third horse was Fiercely Proud. He's a decent horse in his own right. The form stacks up, and he didn't jump all that well there. It was a bit of a fiddly race, but he was going away at the line. I just think you have to take the view. They were talking about this horse being an Arkle horse, a graded horse over fences. They're not often wrong about when they think they've got a good one, and he's running in a hurdle off a mark of 135 on a track he likes. They've prepped him the best they can. I think you've got to be with him. But I just want to throw one more in at an each way price. Again, with Nicky Henderson. Dave Bass taking a ride. Aston Martini. She finished runner-up on a return at Bangor a couple of weeks ago, where she jinxed really badly at the last. She might have just been running on vapours a little bit at the same time as well. First start over 2 mile 4. But she's handicapped to a mark of 123, and I think largely her handicap mark has been assessed around form on soft ground. Her 2 runs on good ground, or good to soft ground, have been really impressive. And at Bangor, I just felt she tanked through the race like a really quality horse. And I just resolved myself that wherever she went on good ground in a better grade of race, where I think she'll travel, I wanted to be with her. I'm surprised she's as short as she is. I'm hoping she might drift. But I just loved how she went through the race. I think the long home straight at Newbury will help her. Dropping back in trip, they'll take her further into the race. Wouldn't be at all surprised to see her chase home her stablemate.
Yeah, she's again represents Nikki Henderson, who's won this with two very good fillies, Epatante and Floressa, going back a good few years now. But Nikki's had First Street. He's just got a really good record in the race. So, two selections from the yard for Ross. Tom, with Jericho de Repene, do you see it as a negative that the horse, they switching him to hurdles? If they did really think that he was an Arkle type, would they not just sort of kick on with that chasing career type of novice season? Why do you feel that coming over to hurdles, do you think that's okay if you're still backing him, or would you see that they sort of need that as a bit of a confidence boost for him?
Well, if you're betting for the Arkle, obviously it's a terrible thing that they're going back over hurdles, because it looks like they're pulling up stumps after one. I was going to say bad run. It wasn't really a bad run. It was just he didn't show up like at all. In the prelims, he didn't show up on the track. It was just a non-event for Jericho de Repene. So does it like they're switching back? Maybe they're going back to something they feel the horse is more comfortable doing, and therefore everything will go a little bit smoother. I don't mind it in this spot. I don't feel like the switch back from fences is a negative for him over hurdles. I think it's kind of irrelevant. But if you have bet him long term for the Arkle, then obviously this is a big question mark. That being said, he's going to be my pick. I don't want any shorter than 4-1, to be honest. I wouldn't bet him at 4-1 or shorter in this race. If he drifts out, maybe 5s, 11-2, something like that, I'll have a couple of quid on. If you go back to our anti-post podcast last season, the Jumps preview podcast, I put up Jericho de Repene as my Supreme horse last year. It didn't work out in the Supreme, of course, but his previous runs, which Ross has already talked about, the beating of Lump Sum in the Rossington being the highlight, they showed that he's got a high level of ability. He wasn't the best novice hurdler, obviously, but he was pretty good. If he can get back to anything like that kind of form off this mark, he should be a very tough horse to beat, and the price will look fair. But with the question marks, I wouldn't want any shorter than 4-1. But he will be my token pick for the race, Jess.
Okay, so confidence around Jericho de Repene despite what happened last time, and putting aside, as he ended last season. So don't be too put off. And I know TC in the past has always said he's not like letters, but normally it's a fall, isn't it, TC?
Exactly. An F or a U.
It's an F or a U. It's not a PU, whereas something is completely untoward. Right, we've got through the Gerry Fielden. We're going to head into the Coral Gold Cup, a race formerly known as the Hennessy. And I've got to say, I need a bit of cheering up here. I'm really disappointed. This is a race that over the years I have loved. I've grown up. My local racetrack is Newbury. Grown up seeing really big, decent field sizes, these really admirable staying proper chasers, and 14 runners. It's just on soft ground. Was it good to soft ground? It's true jumps ground. It seems pretty dismal for a race of this quality, Ross. I don't know really what's happened, where all our good horses are, or at least I would possibly expecting a couple more from Ireland. It just seems like a bit of a shame that this race is not filled up at least closer to 20 runners of a certain grade.
Yeah, I mean, I think this slightly falls on the handicapper, if I'm honest, yes, and I wouldn't want his job, but he has belatedly dropped Brave Man's Game. I think Brave Man's Game dropped £5 for his run in the Betfair Chase. He could have done that a few runs ago with that horse, and I think if he had, you'd have had a high-class Grade 1 performer running off top weight here, which of course gives it that nice angle that we all like, because people talk about Denman winning off big weights. So it's not a vintage renewal, but it's competitive. I've got two. Midnight River is the first one I want to mention, but if you watch my Tuesday podcast, hopefully you took the 20-1 rather than the 9-1 he is now. He got dropped £3 for his return at Wetherby, which I thought was a really satisfactory return. It was 2 mile 3. He clearly needed it. He looked very big in the paddock beforehand. His best form is on decent ground, and Newbury's not going to get any rain. They're currently good to soft, so it's not going to be a traditional soft ground Hennessy. He won the Aintree Premier Handicap in 2023 off a mark of 150, was powering away at the line. I think they stepped him up in trip. He'd started to relax better. I was quite excited about him for last year. He returned to the Charlie Hall. That was a step too far. And he then went to the Coral Trophy off a mark of 156. Was quite well fancied, fell at the 14th when the race was yet to develop, but he certainly wasn't struggling at that point. He's now £5 lower. He's going to light the ground. He's got James Bowen on board, but Dan Skelton early in the week said that Harry was committed to Garlia de la Tour. And this horse, Midnight River, hadn't been pleasing him, but then all of a sudden was. I think they were fancying there was going to be more rain falling, which would give Galia de Loto her perfect conditions. I just wonder whether he wouldn't mind swapping back now, because I don't think she's got her conditions. I think Midnight River has. Just think mark of 151 looks really fair in a weaker. This is a weaker renewal than last year. He's got a lower weight and he's about the same price, and he's only been off the track because he was injured. And then the other one is Victorino for Venetia Williams, Charlie Deutsch. Venetia Williams, 33% strike rate through this month. Charlie Deutsch returned, spell on the sidelines with concussion. He's 44% since then. This horse's form tailed off in the start of this year. 2 runs at Cheltenham, which I don't think suited. Sandwiched a pretty decent effort off a mark of 146 at Ascot. Prior to that, he was wickedly impressive around Ascot, winning off marks of 138 and 142. He only won by a length on the second time, off a mark of 142 from Yearman. But Yearman's now rated 143, and he was getting £12 from Victorino. And Victorino got to the front and idled. He travelled really quickly off the home bend at Ascot, having looked like he was getting a bit outpaced. I can see Newbury really suiting him, and Charlie being able to really take his time, which is, as I discovered on Tuesday, the way he likes to do things. He's down now to a mark just £1 higher than that last Ascot win. Venetia's flying along. He'll like the ground. He'll like the track. He should stay this trip. This will be the furthest he's gone. I liked him. I'm a bit disappointed his price is not a little bit more juicy, though.
Yeah, you imagine possibly, but make us running scared of Venetia Williams and Charlie Deutsch after the most sensational weekend, the best ever, Charlie said. And that's a plug for the podcast that you did with Charlie. A great listen, great horseman. Victorino, a horse that I really followed last season. He's going to have to prove me going around a track like this, just because I kind of felt like he was more of a right-handed specialist. But he is 6-1, and he joins the other selection with Ross, which is Midnight River, at 9-1. So TC, you've got horses in here that I think we generally at this point kind of know where they are, what they're at, what their optimums are. Do you agree with some of what Ross says, especially when it comes to Midnight River having his optimums over Gala de Loto?
I agree that Midnight River is a definite player, but the main reason for me not siding with Midnight River, well, there's two. One, the price has gone, which Ross has already mentioned. And two, James Bowen's on instead of Harry Skelton. And James is a great rider, but I feel Harry would have had the choice. Midnight River was the last off my shortlist. I do want to caveat all of this by saying I won't be having a bet in the race. In my opinion, it's pretty crap. Obviously, it's a competitive event and the market's okay if you want to have a bet, but I have no strong opinion. And there's nothing that really entices me to want to play in the Coral Trophy this year, Coral Gold Cup this year. So there won't be a bet for me. But I just thought Galia de Loto was interesting, purely because she has the proven stamina. She's a very good jumper, second off the wind up, an angle I like. Harry and Dan Skelton had a good start to the season. It just feels like everything's lined up for her to run an okay race. She's an okay price as well, double figures. So I'll take her, but look, I'm not having a bet in this race, so don't take my opinion, really. This is one for Ross to hopefully find the winner of.
Okay, 12-1 for Gala de Loto. This is a race where SBK are giving a 25% boost. So if you're with Ross, or if you're inclined to agree with TC and want to go with that bigger price for that mare, 12-1 you can get. As I said, Victorino 6-1 at present, Midnight River 9-1. I imagine those prices might change a bit. Keep an eye on the weather, as you say. It could just dry out the ground. Right, we had such a good weekend last weekend. As I said, the Super Sub provided most of the good winners, but there was some great selections from Ross and TC. I'll do the best I can to fill in. I feel like I'm filling in for Adam now, and I'm sure there'll be cries desperate for his return. But we'll start with Ross. A good weekend for you. So what have you found for your nap and your next best selections?
I had a few, Jess, but just a couple of them, I was a bit worried that they might. There's nothing worse. I'm sure TC agree that put one up you think is going to be short and it goes odds on. It's just the worst feeling when you're tipping on a Thursday morning. So I've gone for two at slightly bigger prices. The first is in the 12:40, the Sir Peter O'Sullivan Chase at Newbury, and it's Demnat for Venetia Williams. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but she's 33% for this month. His form fell off a cliff last year. He's only one win from 4 starts in the UK, but I cannot shake the visual impression of his win at Ludlow. I was watching it out the corner of my eye to my lunch, and he just tanked through the race and never stopped off a layoff of 960 days. He then went to Newbury and dropped back to 2 miles next time out. He is a full brother to Sco Royale, so you can understand why. And he showed lots of pace at Ludlow. It took him off his feet at Newbury, and he never really featured. He eventually plugged on into third. Form after that wasn't all that great, but Venetia's Yard was out of form in the spring. And I think you have to consider that maybe that big effort on seasonal return off a 960-day layoff just knocked the edge off him. He now returns off just a £5 higher mark than when he won at Ludlow, a mark of 127. If you'd have told me you could back this horse with a mark of 127 after watching that Ludlow win, I'd have been all over him. Yes, he has it to prove, but maybe the angle going fresh will suit him. I think the trip is in range. I think the track will suit him, a nice long home straight that he can take his time over. I expect to be a half decent price in a competitive race. So he's the nap. And then the next best, again at a decent price, but I think he's overpriced in the 320, which is the rehearsal chase up at Newcastle, is Some Scope. His last 2 runs at Cheltenham perhaps haven't been great. He was 4th in April last year, but Richard Hobson's yard was just starting to tail off in terms of form because he gets hit by the rapeseed. He then returned at Cheltenham earlier this month and was really disappointing. But I thought he got given quite a poor ride. There's dropping them out, and then there's dropping them out. And he gave everything a 15-length head start. Didn't jump very well. And I put it down to that. But he's actually had a wind up since, so maybe there was a bit of a problem as well. He returns off a mark of 125. This is the same mark he was second off in the Grimthorpe last year. If you remember, it was really attritional, only 2 finished. He's by telescope. He prefers better ground. I thought it was a massive run on desperate ground at Doncaster last year. Paul O'Brien jumps on. Maybe a change of jockey is a good angle here. He'll like this ground. He's got a very nice racing weight. So he's the next best in the 320. And I did just want to mention, we spoke about James Owen saying that he had one better than East India Dock. We should just mention Lavender Hill Mob runs in the 11:53 at Newcastle, I think it is.
Yeah, I think everyone has heard that and read that, and looking forward to seeing what he can do on the track. If he's anywhere near as good as East India Dock, if he's even better, that's quite frightening. James Owen, his steam trainer runners keep on rolling in, so looking forward to seeing him. Thank you for that, Ross, Demnat and Some Scope. Tom, for you, what are you looking forward to seeing this weekend now that you're a fully fledged National Hunt Racing fan?
This weekend is pretty good. I mean, obviously no all-weather. We're in the all-weather break, so I have to tip over jumps. I would have anyway, because I do like the 2 horses I'm about to mention. I wouldn't say I'm fully fledged just yet, but we'll see. And as Ross has talked about there, we are tipping on Thursday morning, so there are no prices apart from the featured races generally. So these could be short. They're both in small fields, so I apologise, but hopefully they're fair prices. I will be doing a video, as per every Saturday, on SBK's Twitter and my own, where I'll probably tip the horses again, and I'll have prices at that point, so I'll mention in there if they're still good value or not. That being said, my nap, I'm going to head to Newbury. The 115, it's a horse called the New Lion for Dan and Harry Skelton. He is owned by Darren Yates. He races in the Darren Yates Silks, hence the name of this horse. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of money for him. He's very, very highly regarded by the Skeltons. I know that for sure. And therefore, his price may go instantly. So hopefully you're watching this early. Hopefully he opens a fair price. He's been super impressive in 2 starts so far. The bumper, he absolutely bolted up. That came in April this year. He had a break, came back over hurdles at Chepstow, and again, just hacked up, didn't come off the bridle. They think a lot of him. It's a pretty good race. There are some nice-looking types in there, but I expect the New Lion to make it 3 out of 3 under rules for the Skeltons. Hopefully, we get odds against, as I say, but just keep an eye out on that. I will do that video and talk about whether he's value or not. The next best is at Newcastle in the 103, and I know you're going to talk about this race in a second, Jess, so one of us should find the winner anyway. And it's going to be Zandabad for trainer Tony Martin. This is the French Furs, by the way. A race that tends to attract some nice horses, but it's not of graded status. This contest usually goes to an up-and-coming, improving 5-year-old, and Zandabad fits that bill. He's yet to win over hurdles, so that's the question. He's 0 from 6. However, he's been running in some pretty good hurdle races in his short career over obstacles so far. A couple of places behind some nice types, and otherwise just the first 3 runs were no-shows, Tony Martin-esque. His mark of 117 is not accurate of his ability. That's just because he's had very limited chance to go hurdling and perform. His flat mark in the 90s is much more like it. And if you do that, that conversion, add 40 odd pounds, then he's going to be a lot better than 117 basically. His form on the flat this season, earlier in 2024, is super solid. Third in the Chester Cup, sixth in the Ascot Stakes, sixth in the RS Cesarewitch. He's a good horse. He probably should have won the Chester Cup, granted a clear run as well. So give me Zandabad. Hopefully he jumps nicely and provides Tony Martin with another big race success.
Okay, thanks, TC. I'm going to take a completely different stance with that race and go for my nap. And again, although I have to agree with both of you, I'm quite conscious that this horse might be very short as well. It's a horse called Sky Jack High Jack. He was due to run at Market Raising yesterday where I was going to be, but he was taken out last minute on account of soft ground. He's in search of better ground, which he'll get at Newcastle. And unlike his rival Zandabad, he knows how to win over hurdles. He's done it 5 times in a row already. He has gone up through the ranks like in the rate of knots. Began winning handicaps off a mark of 97. He's now got a rating of 132. It's quite phenomenal what he's achieved. It's whether he's better than just a handicapper, but I think beating Captain Bellamy with all the penalties that he had last time, a nice, useful enough horse of Paul Nicholls, making him look ordinary, has to give him the possibility of being much better than we've seen. Potentially he's one of those, if he wasn't with this yard, he'd be a more of a standout horse that people will be talking about. He is beautiful to watch jumping. Take the time to watch back how he jumps a hurdle, especially at Exeter last time. He's very economical. He's already won at Newcastle, where he goes back to. Yes, he's on much bigger weight now, but I think he's extremely exciting. So I'm hoping that Skyjack Hijack can deliver, and if so, he'll be beating TC. So we'll see how that pans out. My next best, though, ironically, is with TC, as that I like Galalato in the Coral Gold Cup. I think that if the ground remains with the softer side in it, that should be to her liking. She's a very strong stay at this trip. I think Harry Skelton will go out and use her jumping ability, get her out into a good rhythm out in front, which has seen a lot of horses win this race in the past. So she seems to have plenty in her favour, especially that, as I said, that staying ability. So looking forward to this weekend. Hopefully we provided you with a few more winners at this podcast. Don't forget, if you are betting on that Coral Gold Cup, SBK are offering a 25% winning boost. So lots to look forward to. Thanks to Ross and TC. A plug again to Ross's podcast from Tuesday with Charlie Deutsch. Great listen. We've got lots of other content on the SBK website, lots of other offers and promotions. If you are a new SBK user, you can get £40 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time.